Welcome to Legacy Makers, a conversation for dads. This is a space for building community and for honest conversations about fatherhood, the wins, the struggles, and the responsibility of building something that outlives us. Each episode, we sit down with leaders, dads, and friends to talk about family, fatherhood, and the kind of men our kids need us to be, because legacy isn't accidental, it's built. All right, we are kicking off season 2. As we said, we're going to talk about building a house, something you and I know nothing about.
We are obviously experts at building a house, right?
We're going to do our best to pretend that we're contractors and we know how to even... I have a hard time hanging pictures. I can hang pictures, but they're always wrong and they're like tilted and... it's like 4 to 5 holes per one like picture for me to get it right. Like it's not great. If you take any picture off my walls of my house,
there's a bunch of different holes.
It's so bad.
Yeah, we still call my dad to come do things at the house that require any kind of being handy.
Yeah. Well, listen, what I do know about home building, the foundation's really important.
Yeah.
The foundation's really, really important. You know, it's not going to be a very sturdy house without a strong foundation. And I think that's where we need to start. And it's a parallel to being a dad that is more than, you know, just the day to day. But like when you're building a long-term legacy, you got to have a foundation that is at the core of what you're doing. And you build that with your family and your spouse and your kids. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, because I think this is a great place for us to start this journey as we think about equipping dads to think about building a legacy that lasts.
Yeah, that part is key. You say building a legacy that lasts. This whole idea of legacy is something that's going to outlive you, that's going to be down the road. And I think the same thing is true if you build a house or any structure and you do it well, you want to build something that will stand.
That's right.
It's really important to think about a foundation that is not susceptible to the pressures of life. Because the fact is, marriage, kids, work, financial struggles, there are going to be so many pressures in life that come in. And if that foundation isn't strong, in fact, there's a biblical story about this where Jesus actually uses a picture of a house built on a rock and a house built on the sand. And he talks about these two different people. One built their house the same way, but it was built on sand. And I love this picture. It says that the rains fell and the winds came and the waters rose. And so the picture is of a house that's under attack from all sides, from above and the side and below. I mean, that's a picture of being a dad. Like right now, as we're recording this, it's like sick kid at home and trying to figure out this for school. And I know moms have to deal with this more than dads, but we had to get Valentines for each of these kids for school, all these kind of things. Then there's an issue at work. And speaking of house stuff, when something goes wrong at the house, somebody's got to take care of it. All these things. And it says that the house built on the sand didn't stand. But the same house built with the same structure that had the same pressures that was built on a rock stood because the foundation was secure. And so I think just for every dad listening right now, here's the challenge. If you don't get this right, none of the other stuff will matter. Like if everything else is strong and your foundation isn't there when the pressures of life come, it's not going to work. And you were telling me before we recorded about some statistics.
Yeah.
Let's just if you don't have the right foundation and we don't make the right kind of legacy, what happens when dads aren't the dads they're supposed to be?
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the things that help build that foundation, but it starts with presence. And in this conversation, presence then becomes just not optional, right? It's actually architectural as we think about building the house. Some statistics, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, about 1 in 4 children in the United States today live without a father in the home. So then research that has been aggregated by the National Fatherhood Initiative disproportionately shows that children in father-absent homes are more likely to experience higher poverty rates, increased behavioral issues, higher risk of incarceration, and lower academic achievement. And so,
and I just want to say this, because if you're sitting here and you didn't have a dad present, or you doing that, like, and you've overcome that, that's good on you. This doesn't mean that this happens with everybody, but the research shows that more often than not, if you don't have a dad, lower income, more behavior, and like just flat out, you are more likely to end up in jail. And so I think, just pause for a second, dads matter. Like, dads being present in a home makes a difference, and that's one of the reasons we're passionate about this.
In homes and communities, there's data that shows that communities that have more involved dads have lower crime rate, right? So dads matter, moms matter.
Issue.
It's a combination, but here's the deal. Presence is the starting point, being there. Yeah. And then when you layer on the intentionality of, how do I want to lead my family? What legacy am I creating? There's a multiplier effect there. And no one is driving by a home and saying, man, that house right there is incredible. Look at the foundation on that thing.
It's a good looking foundation on that. Yeah.
They're not, right? But
so if the foundation is wrong, it's not something you see. It's not something you get credit for.
There's no pictures taken about hey, look at this foundation. But ultimately, if it's not laid the right way, if there's a crack, eventually it's going to surface.
Yeah.
And it's back to the comment you and I've talked about, the line from the Hemingway book, gradually and then suddenly. That's kind of like a foundation that is poured improperly. There will be an issue.
Yeah.
And it will likely be a gradual kind of deterioration in the family. And then there'll be a sudden event that occurs if that foundation wasn't laid properly. And we have to be thoughtful. And so listen, let's say you have 10-year-old kids or 15 kids or 15. That doesn't mean you've missed the window. You can still go back and do these foundational things.
Yeah. Again, from a couple guys that know nothing about houses, but I do know people that have had their basement and it's flooded and they've had these issues, and they bring in companies to do foundation repair.
Yeah.
So there are some of us that may have younger kids that are installing the foundation for the first time, and there are others that need to do some foundation repairs, but it's critical you get it right. I think this is important. The strength of the foundation determines the durability.
Yeah.
So how effective we are as dads long-term is based on the structure we set in the beginning.
Yeah. And it's no different than cooking. You can't skip steps. Right. When you're building a foundation in a home, you got to come in, you got to clear it. You got to clear the land, you got to clear the space, you got to dig super deep, right, to make sure that you've got a foundation that is rooted, to your point earlier on, building a house on rock or sand, right? You've got to lay concrete. You can't lay concrete and then just all start building. You got to let that thing settle. So there's patience. There's an incredible amount of parallels to how we think about being dads, but you cannot skip a step.
Okay. I want you to go through some of those steps, but before you do that, I want to talk for a second about digging deeper, because I don't like to dig deeper. Yesterday I was with a guy that, Rob McKinnon, who was my coach for a couple years. And Rob forced me to, like, before we ever started our coaching, I had to go back and do this whole journey of my childhood and what happened and all this stuff. And I do not have crazy childhood trauma. I have two parents that are still married that have had great childhood. But one of the things that I learned is a lot of the ways that I have a propensity to parent are based on the way that I was raised as a child. As a child, I was praised for good performance. So I have a tendency to praise my kids for what they do, not just who they are. This is why this matters. A foundation requires us to dig deeper. Dads, I know you may not want to hear this all right now, but you are going to have to do some introspection. You've got to find out, why do you yell when they do that one thing every time? Why do you immediately shut off when this happens? Digging deeper starts before you can even lay the proper foundation.
So well said. And that digging deeper with yourself.
With yourself. Like it's got to start here.
Yeah.
So once we've dug for the foundation and then we start to like, can you talk about some of the elements that provide a proper foundation?
Yeah.
So one, you talked about presence.
Presence before performance is where I'll start. The statistics that we just went through did not say 1 in 4 kids, it said didn't have a dad present. That's what it said. It wasn't, didn't have a great dad. It was presence.
Yeah.
Presence before performance.
Being there.
My girls right now, when I'm traveling and don't get them up in the mornings, they're not happy. That's been which it's beautiful. It's hard for Brittany. They're not saying, oh, I want daddy here because he's, makes me laugh or does these things. Like there's a missing thing when I'm not there.
Yeah.
And me building my calendar the last couple of years to be super intentional of when I am in Atlanta, not traveling, no matter what, I'm getting the kids up and taking them to the bus. There's been something special there that the presence is important, right? Cool. So consistency is the key to presence. And that's the most important thing. You got to show up. And when you're there, you've got to be reachable, put your phone down, make eye contact. Look, you and I have careers we're proud of. They do not care about our productivity measures. They do not care about our performance at work. They're going to remember our availability.
That's true. That's very true. So you dig deeper, and then the elements, you start presence before performance.
Yep.
What else?
Patience.
No, now you're losing me here.
Patience.
I feel like when you build a house, like you put the concrete in, and when it's wet, you can't go lay the next layer on top. You have to let that set first.
Concrete takes time to cure, right? The structure that you're building takes some time to be stable before you add more weight to the other things you're doing. If you rush it, what happens? It's going to crack.
Yeah, there's no shortcut here.
So think about the parallels to fatherhood. I mean, when I think about where I have my missteps, it is always because I don't have the right availability of patience.
Yeah. Yeah. So the patience piece of that really is about taking the time and understanding this is not going to happen all at once.
Yeah, and if you're not sure if you have the right level of patience, here's a question I would say you ask yourself.
I don't know if I want to hear this question.
This is cuts to the heart for me. If someone were to say to you, Kevin, George, if he were to learn how to handle stress by watching you, is that a good thing?
Next question. I mean, you're right. No, it's just... And here's what I would say. For me personally, it's the pace of always feeling rushed.
Yeah.
So
that's the convicting question when you think about patience under pressure. Are your kids, if all they're doing, if it's truly caught versus taught, meaning, Camden, when you are stressed, you should do X, Y, Z. If he's not hearing any of that and he is only watching me react, what example am I setting? And if the answer to that question is, man, that is not an emotionally regulated thing that I want him to see, we got to lock into that. We got to take action on that, because presence is better than performance. And we've got to, number 2, be really patient, especially under pressure, when we're frustrated, when we're late, when I got to go do this thing, I got to call in 5 minutes. Yeah. Like I thought about it today, how many times do my kids, when I'm working at home, say, be quiet. I got to call in 2 minutes. Just be quiet. Y'all just stop. Just stop. Like it's convicting to think about that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Patience under pressure. What else?
Here's the other thing. So foundation is hidden, right? It's hidden. It's below the house. It's below the surface. So we have to have integrity in hidden places. The house needs to be strong in a hidden place. We as dads need to have integrity in hidden places. Hidden meaning hidden from the world, right? So out at a restaurant, taking your kids to work, at the ball field, at church, what is the public persona? Wonderful. That's fine. How are you in the hidden place of your home?
Yeah.
Are you the same person? That's a big one.
Well, let me just go there for a second, because We talk a lot about tactics of how you show up as a dad, the way that you interact with your kids, the way that you treat your spouse, all of those things. And let me just tell you, as I get older, here's some of the things that I found. There are some dads who did all that really well, and they didn't have integrity in other areas of their life, and it has cost them everything. Not because of anything they did as a dad, but because they weren't ethical at work, and they lost their job, and this happened, or they were unfaithful to their wife, and now it's destroyed their family. And so I know that's not fun to talk about, but that is the piece that is underground that, if it is not right, can totally wreck. And I think, I hope that we would make the right decisions anyway. But I think we need to think about that before we make a decision, is how is this decision that I'm going to make that seems like it's quiet and hidden over here, how, if that was revealed, how could that impact my kids forever?
Yeah. And it's a daunting thought, because it's like this pressure of like, man, like the stakes are so high that it should be a daunting thought.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is, I have people's faces come to my mind as similar situations in my life. And I will tell you, I could have easily and still could easily be in that exact spot, because we are all flawed, and we're all one decision away from something very different. And so
somebody said, when you think that it couldn't happen to you is when you're most at risk.
And honestly, what typically happens that I've seen is, it's not I am this way very consistently, and then I go this way in one moment. Mm-hmm. It is a series of little bends and little tweaks to what your principles are, or what you know is right, that you're like, oh, that's not a big deal. It's just one thing, or this is one little thing. And it snowballs. Like, what are you consuming even? Meaning social media. What are you watching? For me, I can get into a downward spiral of like doom scrolling or something. And it may not be like, oh, this is going to end my marriage, but I know I'm not happy afterwards. I could be consuming, the algorithm works because it's trying to fire me up and get me mad about something. And now I've taken that out on my kids or my wife. So it's not just these big momentous decisions that like could end up screwing everything up. It's like the little ones that can mount. And so we have as dads, as we think about that foundation, have got to make sure that we, especially in the hidden places, the places that just our family sees us, or by ourselves, like we have integrity in those spots to ensure the foundation's strong.
I think that's good. So talk about a foundation is built on presence, not performance, being there. It's built on patience under pressure. So when the pressure gets there, and then integrity in hidden places.
Yep. And the last one I would say is, and there's more, Kev, to this, more things we could talk about foundationally, but as I was thinking about this, it's repetition and rhythm.
What do you mean by that?
So foundations are not measured precisely. You lay a foundation, you might have to go back and add some more things.
Anybody who builds houses, don't take this as house advice here. Just use this. We believe this to be true.
But we've got to have repetition and rhythm with our families. And that's going to look differently based on people's jobs and travel schedules and what's our spousal schedule. Like, it's just going to look different. But legacy is built in rhythms. It is. We've talked about that word a lot. That could be a bedtime routine. That could be, hey, this is what we do on Saturday mornings. We eat together as a family. We pray in the morning before school. If you can coach your kid, like one-on-one time we've talked a lot about, but that is so vital that there's repetition and rhythm. My girls love going to get a muffin before school. Like, it used to be with the boys, we do it like once a month, but now it's like every week now, because they just run my life. But they love it. And we go, and it's literally like 13 minutes. We go there, we go in, and it's quick. They act like that is the greatest thing ever, that we stop before school and have this little time and get a cinnamon muffin at the little shop and then go sit in car line. You would think I gave them the greatest thing ever, but that's a rhythm we've put in that, at least once or a couple of times a month we do that. And I know they're going to look back on those moments fondly, and they want to take a picture and they want to show mom the picture later. So it doesn't have to be these big things, but figure out a way to get rhythms and then continue to repeat those things. Bedtime's a bit. Yeah. We all can do bedtime, right? So
it's a good It's a good process. I think as we close, just a few things that are coming to mind. Number one, we've got to have a blueprint. Like, nobody lays a foundation without a plan.
Yep.
And so I would take some of these things that we've talked about today, but you need a plan in place. You need a blueprint. Number two, this thing is hidden. This is the foundation is not what everybody sees, but it's what's going to matter and stand. And then I think I would ask everybody, and I'm doing it for myself right now, is reevaluate what areas am I building on sand? What areas foundationally am I at risk of something shifting?
Yeah, and let me tell you something. I think that we need to also touch on what happens when there's a crack in the foundation.
Yeah, talk about it.
Because there will be cracks in the foundation just because that's how life goes. And we need to make sure we understand what the warning signs of those cracks are and what will cause cracks. And there's a few things, and we've talked a little bit about, and a lot of it's where you started, which is that introspection of like, why am I the way that I am? What are certain triggers for me? But chronic anger, like, this is a thing that dads unfortunately are kind of known for. But we got to figure out if you got some things going on where you're frustrated or you're angry, it's not a little 6-year-old that's causing that or their behavior. There's something deeper there. Emotional absence. There are plenty of dads that are there physically in a shell of themselves more than ample time, but they're not there emotionally. Hypocrisy. So you better treat your mom this way, and how dare you need to da. And then the dad turns around and is disrespectful to the mom in front of him. That caught not taught is very real. These kids, you can talk to them until you're blue in the face, but they're going to watch how you behave. Workaholic. And it doesn't have to be workaholic. It's just you're so invested, your disordered love that we've talked about. Loving things in the wrong order. And then again, inconsistency. I cannot show up for a couple weeks as this great involved dad and then like have 2 weeks of like hypocrisy or whatever it is. But think about what those cracks could be. And when they're there, just fix them. Don't let them mount and snowball.
Yeah. I get that. That may be, that last part, maybe something everybody needs to hear again is the longer you allow a crack in the foundation to sit, the deeper it's going to grow, the tougher it is to fix, the more likely it is that it causes issues with the rest of the house. So if you identify cracks now, you've got to find a way to fix them as quickly as you can.
We've got a big tree that's out in front of our house. I know for a fact that those roots are pressing up into the foundation. Mm-hmm. And I've waited a couple months just because of this or that. It's happening.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not thinking about it right now, like it's happening. I got to do something about it.
Yeah.
Where I will close, and then I'll see if you got anything, Kev. Back to that reflective question. When my kids are 35 and they're describing their childhood home, I don't want them to describe the square footage or the kitchen was really nice or we had our own space. I want them to talk about how the house felt. And that is directly driven by the foundation.
That's good. I think that's key. I would just say this. We talked about this biblical picture of it. I do think faith, and people may come from different faith backgrounds on here, but that faith is a solid part of the foundation that I believe is necessary for homes to be built on something that is bigger than us, that will outlast us, and that will matter. So I'd encourage people in that. You know what I'm excited about is next session we're going to be back with David Salyers, who's a good friend of ours. I know he's been a mentor to both of us, and we're going to unpack with him what this looks like as somebody who's a little bit older than us, who's done it a little bit longer, and has done it really successfully. So looking forward to that. I hope you guys are building the foundation, and we'll see you next time.